utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is more Moulton's duty than yours, especially when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German lesson is on the table. Pray, open it at page 15.
Ooh.
We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he is leaving for town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best health, and his gravity of demeanor is to be especially commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty or responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. And you must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometime. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you certainly would. You know, German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could have an effect on a character that, according to his own brother, has a character that is weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep one at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles of things that have never happened and couldn't have possibly have happened. I believe memory is responsible for nearly all of the 3-volume novels of the Moody send us.
You mustn't speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope you did not end happily. I dislike novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Well, the good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no! The manuscript was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost, or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
Ah, but I see a dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Chasuble, this is a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I haven't said anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet?
We do not expect him until Monday afternoon.
Oh, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely. Drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at Evansville.
I think, dear Doctor, I might have a walk with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a stroll might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence? the chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somehow too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, B-O-N-E-W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he'll look just like everybody else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily. I'm sure.
I'm afraid you are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age, but I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not really wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I am wicked.
If you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That'd be hypocrisy.
Well, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
Now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up by the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life, but I still think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your immigrating.
About my what?
You're immigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He's got no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The reports I've received from Australia and the next world aren't particularly encouraging. This world's good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I am afraid I'm not. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission, cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Well, would you be opposed to me reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me! I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A mark your meal.
No, I would sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be quite right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that any sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I should care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope, never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up until the present day. And you do not seem to realize, Dr. Chasuble, that by a man persistently remaining single leads to permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy could lead weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often, I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing?
Mr. Worthing?
We did not expect you until Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust his garb of woe did not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More shameful deaths and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
dead,
Your brother Ernest dead?
quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris. I received a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seems to express a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Oh, I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some such allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and festal days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop, who was present, was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen, all right? I mean, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of our rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the topic, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it's not for any child, dear doctor. I'm very fond of children. No, the truth is that I would like to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
But have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have, but I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling, and indeed the immersion of adults, is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish the ceremony perform?
Oh, I might trot around about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins had occurred recently in one of the outlying cottages on your own estate. Poor Jenkins Carter, a most hard-working man.
Well, I don't see much fun in being christened along with other babies. It would be childish. Now, would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I must intrude no longer into a house of woe. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What seem to us to be bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I am pleased to see you back. But what hard clothes you got on? Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child, my child!
Uncle Jack, do you look happy? You look as if you've got toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Your brother, Ernest, wrote about half an hour ago.
What nonsense? I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved in the past, he's still your brother. You could be so heartless as to disown him. I will tell him to come out and you'll shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been told that he was gone, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother? In the dining room? I don't know what it all means, but I think it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand that I think is coming down here disgraceful, and he knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves behind the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
He's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury? Well, I won't have to talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Well, I admit that the folks were all on my side. I must say that I find Brother John's coldness to me to be peculiarly painful. I expected more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time I've come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I shall never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never!
Very well, but this is the last time I shall ever do it.
Oh, it's pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we might leave these two brothers alone together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism, my little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Oh, Jade, you young scoundrel, you must get out of this place at once. I don't allow any bumbering here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called anywhere.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why don't you go and change? It's completely ridiculous to be in deep mourning for someone who is actually going to be staying with you in your own house as a guest for a whole week. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave you while you're in mourning. It'd be very unfriendly of me. You'd stay with me if I were in mourning, I think. I think it very unkind if you didn't.
Will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're not too long about it. I've never seen someone take so long to dress and with such little result.
Well, at any rate, it's better than always being the overdressed as you are.
If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I always make up for it by being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have got to leave by the 4:05, and I wish you a very pleasant journey back to town. This bumbering, as you call it, has not been a very great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. Though I must see her again and make arrangements for another bumbering. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He is going to send me away.
Then we have got to part.
Yes, it is a very painful parting.
It is always painful parting from people to whom one has just been introduced. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dark art is at the door, sir?
Tell it to come back, Merriman, in about 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I will not offend you if I say quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? Oh, I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh no, you see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy, but pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think, Ernest, that you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dark art is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying until next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Well, we have been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Yes, it'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, he of course formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all, and I dare say it was foolish, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, and when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I sorted to end the matter one way or another, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under the dear old trade hair. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name, and this is a little bangle for the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I buy you this? Very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters! But, my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember all too well how I was forced to write your letters for you. I would work 3 times a week and sometimes
Do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh, no! That made you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I'd broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was, on the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why would you ever break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I am very hurt to hear that you broke off our engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it had been broken up at least once, but I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are.
Dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, of course, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, will you, Cecily?
I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, my dear child, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
There, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own dear, sweet little darling, I really don't see why you should have any objection to the name Algernon. It's not a bad name. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But really, Cecily, if my name were Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here, I presume, is practicing all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes, Dr. Chasuble is the most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must speak to him at once on the most important christening. I mean, on most important business.
Oh,
I shan't be away more than half an hour.
considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I've only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Could you maybe 20 minutes?
I will be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much, I must add his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax called on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray, ask the lady to come here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, suppose one of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew, what a very sweet name. I can tell already that we're going to be such great friends. I like you more than I can already say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've only known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, Maeana.
If you wish.
And you'll always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
With pleasure.
It's quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
This may be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You've heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Well, outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. And I think that's quite as it should be. The home seems to be the proper sphere for the man, and surely once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. Do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolen. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You're here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh, no, I live here.
Indeed. Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here as well?
Oh, no. I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Really?
My guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh! How strange. He never mentioned to me that he had a ward. He grows more interesting hourly. Though I can't say news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. Now, since I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I am bound to state I can't help expressing the wish you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, not so quite very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, please do. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, you speak with perfect candor, Cecily. I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. Dishonor to him would be as possible as deception. But even men with the highest noble character are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history supplies us with the many most painful examples of which I referred to. History would be quite unreadable if it were not.
Excuse me, Gwendolen. Did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Oh, he never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Ah, and that accounts for it. And now that I think about it, I don't believe I've heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems to be distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if the cloud came over a friendship like ours. But you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
My dearest Gwendolen, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact late next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I'm afraid there might be some slight error, Cecily, for you see, Ernest is engaged to me. The announcement will appear on the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
For it is certainly very curious. He proposed to me yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you'd like to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I'm so sorry if it is any disappointment to you, dear Cecily, but it appears that I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolen, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. it becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for wearing the shadow mask of man. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I have never seen a spade. It is very obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay the tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I'm not so sure I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden you have, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were so many flowers in the country.
Oh, florists are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Well, I don't understand how anybody who is anybody survives the country. The country always bores me to death.
Ah, this is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering very much from it at the present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I've been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You had filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I most distinctly asked for bread and butter, you had given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extreme sweetness of my nature, but I swear, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor innocent trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, though no length to which I would not go.
From the moment I met you, I knew you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you many of the calls of similar character to make in the neighborhood. Ernest!
Gwendolen,
Are you engaged to this young lady?
to dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must have been some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young man? Oh, good heavens, Gwendolen!
Good heavens, I mean to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have possibly put such a silly idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. For you see, the gentleman who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff? Oh! Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh. Are you really called John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily!
I'm doing wrong, Gwendolen!
We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is of some importance to us as to where he is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. Indeed, it is the first time in my life I have ever been reduced to such a painful position, and I'm really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly, as I have no brother Ernest, I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother in my life, and I have not the smallest intention of ever having a brother in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
No brother of any kind.
Never. Not even of any kind.
I think it's quite clear, dear Cecily, that, well, neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Come, let us venture into the house. There hardly come after us than men.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
I suppose this ghastly state of things is what you call bumbering, I suppose.
Yes. Wonderful Bunbury it is too. The most wonderful Bunbury I have ever had in my whole life.
Well, you have no right whatsoever to Bunbury here.
Oh, that's perfectly ridiculous. One has a right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
A serious Bunbury is? Good heavens!
Well, one must be serious about something if one wants to retain any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunburying. What you're serious about, I couldn't say. Serious about everything, I'd wager. You have such a trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother is looking a little off colour, isn't he, Jack? You won't be able to sneak up to town quite as much like your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I must say, you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence for your deceiving a clever, brilliant, thoroughly educated woman like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
To be engaged to Gwendolen, that is all. I love her.
Well, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of your ever marrying Miss Cardew.
It doesn't seem like there's much likelihood of you, Jack, and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. Only stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there, calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble, I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can hardly eat muffins in an agitated manner, can I? The butter would probably dissolve my cups. No, one should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you eating muffins at all, but under the circumstances.
When I am in very great trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in very great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately would tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At present, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, there is no reason why you should eat them all that greedy, right?
I wish you would have some tea cake. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens! Suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
Well, you have just told me it was perfectly heartless to be eating muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
That may be so, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
Oh, you can't possibly ask me to go. I haven't had my dinner yet. I never leave anywhere without having my dinner first. Nobody ever does, except for vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I have just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolen would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest, it's absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I've ever been christened by anybody, and I think it extremely probable I never was, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the important thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you are quite certain of your ever having been christened, I think it is quite dangerous of you venturing on it now. It could make you very unwell. I need hardly remind you that someone quite closely connected to you was nearly carried off this week by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself a severe chill is not hereditary.
It usedn't to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making lovely advances in things.
Oh, that is nonsense. You are always talking nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Then why do you serve it out to your guests? What absurd ideas you have of hospitality.
Algernon, I've already asked you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you just go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. Besides, there's still one muffin left.
Oh.